Good afternoon. It's good to see you again. We have been in these last couple of weeks in the Wisdom Psalms. And of course, there were many that we didn't preach on. And I'm hoping that you're doing what Jane and I are doing and reading these Psalms each day of the week. It's an interesting fact that one of these Psalms is repeated almost verbatim twice in the Psalter. Psalm 14 and Psalm 53. They begin the same way. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, they do abominable deeds. There is none who does good. That's Psalm 14. Psalm 53 says the same thing. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, doing abominable iniquity. There is none who does good. What's interesting is that in the Hebrew, the only difference in those two Psalms is the word they use for God. Whether it's Yahweh or Jehovah or Elohim. It's the only difference in them. So twice, for reasons that only the Holy Spirit knows, he chose to give us this psalm twice. And its opening line is something that is provocative. It says the fool, and of course you know as well as I do that the fool is a synonym for the unconverted man. Just as the wise is a symbol for the redeemed or regenerate man. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Now, he doesn't say that out loud. He's still, even in this age of scientific materialism and secularism, he knows better than to say in a group of people, especially a civilized group of people, there is no God. But he thinks that in his heart. He says, there is no God, really. And the rest of the psalm says, what's the result of that? He reasons that God doesn't see him, doesn't hear what he says, doesn't really care. He kind of believes in God in the sense that God exists and God is somehow the first cause. But he says in his heart, God's really not involved in my life, so who cares? It's the thought of what we call practical atheists. And many people, including many people who are in Christian churches, are practical atheists. That means they go to church on Sunday because Sunday's God's day and they give a nod to God's time, God's dimension. But the rest of their life, it's as if God doesn't exist. And I think that that's where our whole culture is today. It's not unusual for whether it's a Democrat or Republican giving a speech somewhere to people who always end his speech with, thank you for listening and God bless America. But then he goes out and lives and legislates and practices his law as if there was no God at all. And the results are obvious. We live in a world here in America full of dichotomous thoughts and competing ideas that are causing a clash. All the conflict we see around us politically and culturally and even physically is really rooted out of a conflict internally. The conflict between believing there is a God, but he's not really pertinent. And I want to encourage you not to fall into that trap. Not to think that once you've given God his nickel of time on Sunday morning, that you can go and live the rest of your life without him. It doesn't work that way. Because the result is that we will become corrupt, do abominable deeds, and there was none of us who does good. Romans chapter 3 quotes these very words from both of these Psalms, that there are none who do righteous, none who do good, because most people are practical atheists. I'm thankful for our church here at Peace, where we believe in a living God. And we believe in God who's sovereign and personal, who's in control of the grand scheme of things, but also the details, the minutiae of our lives, who loves not just mankind, but your children and you as well. And we need to live in response to that personal loving God. There's nothing we do, nothing, where God is not invited into it. And in fact, where God shouldn't be sovereign over it. And so as you get up every morning, as you start reading these Psalms, just remind yourself that the one who is listening to you reading is reading with you. In fact, he's the author of these things. As St. Augustine says, Christ is the singer of these Psalms. And the thoughts that he has put in them for you and me are there for one single purpose, and only that is to bring us every day, and hopefully into every moment, believing that God is with us, that he loves us, that He's intimately involved in us for our good and not for our demise. So God bless you, God keep you, and God be real to you this week and in the coming weeks and years. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.